When do I actually enter a plea of guilty or not guilty? Facing criminal charges can be overwhelming, and one of the first decisions a defendant must make is how to plead. The timing of when a plea is entered depends on several factors, including the type of charge and whether the case is being handled in state or federal court. Understanding this process is essential for anyone navigating the criminal justice system. At the state level, a defendant typically pleads not guilty at their arraignment for indicted felonies, misdemeanors, and violations. For unindicted felonies, a general denial is entered at the arraignment, and a not guilty plea is made only after a grand jury indictment. In federal court, the defendant enters a not guilty plea at the initial appearance. A plea of guilty is generally entered later in the process, often after negotiations with the prosecution. It is always advisable to consult a lawyer before deciding how to plead. The legal process of entering a plea hearing is a formal court proceeding where the defendant responds to the charges. In misdemeanor cases, the plea is typically entered at the initial appearance, while felony cases involve additional steps such as a preliminary hearing and status conferences before reaching the plea hearing. A felony plea hearing occurs after the arraignment. If the defendant initially pleads not guilty, the case may proceed to a preliminary hearing, where the prosecution must present enough evidence to continue the case. The defense has the opportunity to challenge this evidence. If no plea agreement is reached, the case moves toward trial. In both state and federal courts, discovery is an important factor before entering a plea. In federal cases, discovery is provided before plea negotiations. In state court, prosecutors must provide discovery within 15 days of arraignment, although extensions can be granted. When a plea offer is made, all discovery must be disclosed within a specific time frame before the offer's expiration. When should you enter a plea? At arraignment, a defendant must respond to the charges, but pleading not guilty initially is often the best course of action. This allows the attorney time to review evidence, negotiate with the prosecution, and explore possible defenses. A guilty plea is typically entered later in the process, often as part of a plea agreement. Plea bargains allow defendants to plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for a reduced sentence, avoiding the risks of trial. More than 90% of criminal cases are resolved through plea agreements. If the defendant chooses to fight the charges, the case will proceed through court appearances, motions, and potentially trial. The number of required court appearances depends on the judge and severity of the charges, with monthly appearances being common. The arraignment and what happens next. An arraignment is the first formal court appearance following an arrest. It is not a trial but a proceeding where charges are read, bail is determined, and the initial plea is entered. The prosecution presents a charge sheet, which may differ from what the defendant expected. Having an attorney present at arraignment is crucial, as they can argue for reasonable bail conditions and ensure the defendant understands their rights. After arraignment, the case follows different paths based on the charges. If it is a misdemeanor, pretrial motions and hearings will occur. If no plea deal is reached, the case proceeds to trial. Felony cases are referred to a grand jury, which determines whether to indict. If indicted, the case moves to a Supreme Court hearing and additional legal proceedings. Legal guidance is essential. Navigating the criminal justice system without proper legal representation can be risky. Whether considering a plea deal or preparing for trial, an experienced attorney is essential to protect your rights and work toward the best possible outcome. The law offices of Jason Bassett, PC offers skilled legal representation for those facing criminal charges. For more information or to schedule a consultation, contact the law offices of Jason Bassett, PC at 631-259-6060. Visit their office at 320 Carleton Avenue No. 4200, Central Islip, New York, 11722, United States.